Everyone walked past the wolf because they saw a monster, but she was the only one who saw someone worth saving. The winter market of Silvermoon was colder than anyone remembered. Snow covered the narrow streets, and the wind moved between the old wooden buildings like a forgotten whisper. Among the crowded stalls and quiet footsteps, Olivia Grace Bennet noticed something no one else wanted to see. At the far end of the market, behind a simple wooden barrier, a large silver-gray wolf sat alone. The creature looked exhausted, not because of its size or appearance, but because of the sadness in its eyes. People walked by without stopping. Some called it dangerous. Others said it was nothing more than a wild animal with no value. But Olivia saw something different. She saw a soul that had been abandoned. Olivia was an Omega who had spent most of her life knowing what it felt like to be overlooked. In a world where strength and status decided a person's place, she had learned to stay quiet and avoid attention. She owned very little, lived in a small cottage near the borderlands, and survived by helping others whenever she could. She knew what it felt like when people looked at you and decided you were not important. That was why she could not walk away. The seller announced that the wolf was unwanted and needed someone willing to take responsibility for it. Most people continued moving, unwilling to spend even a moment caring about a creature they did not understand. Olivia looked into the wolf's eyes and felt a strange connection. There was intelligence there. There was pride. There was a quiet pain that reminded her of every person who had ever been forgotten. She reached into her small pouch and counted the few coins she had saved. It was not enough for much. It was supposed to buy supplies for the coming weeks. But when she looked back at the wolf, her decision was already made. "I will take him," Olivia said softly. The people around her turned in surprise. They could not understand why an Omega with so little would spend her savings on a wolf that others rejected. Olivia did not explain. She simply opened the gate and approached slowly. The wolf watched her carefully. For the first time in what felt like a very long time, someone was looking at him without fear or judgment. Deep inside, Adrian Alexander Whitmore remembered a world that seemed impossibly far away. He remembered the Silvermoon throne, the responsibility of the Alpha King, and the people who once called him their ruler. But after everything changed, he had become nothing more than a creature trapped behind a name no one knew. He had lost his position, his voice, and the respect that came with his title. Yet standing before him was a young Omega who offered kindness without knowing who he was. She did not see a king. She did not see power. She only saw someone who needed help. Olivia gently placed a warm blanket around him and whispered, "You are safe now." Those simple words affected him more than she could ever understand. For the first time since losing everything, Adrian felt something he thought he would never experience again: hope. As Olivia guided the wolf away from the market and toward her small home, she believed she had rescued a forgotten animal. She had no idea that the creature walking beside her was the missing Alpha King of Silvermoon. And she had no idea that saving him would change both of their destinies forever. Olivia Grace Bennet had always believed that a quiet life was the safest life. She never expected anything extraordinary to happen beyond the small wooden door of her cottage near the Silvermoon borderlands. But now, as the silver-gray wolf rested near her fireplace, watching every movement with intelligent eyes, her simple world had begun to change. The little cottage that once felt empty now carried a strange sense of warmth. Olivia prepared a small meal, placed a bowl of water nearby, and carefully arranged a soft blanket for the wolf. She did not expect gratitude. She did not expect anything in return. She only wanted him to understand that he was no longer alone. Adrian Alexander Whitmore watched her quietly. For years, he had lived surrounded by people who measured everything by power and position. Everyone in Silvermoon knew the importance of the Alpha King, but almost no one knew the person behind the title. They respected the crown, not the heart beneath it. Yet this Omega woman treated him with more kindness than many who had once stood beside his throne. She spoke to him gently, even when she believed he was only an injured wolf. She thanked him for staying calm. She apologized when she moved too quickly near him. She made sure he was comfortable before thinking about herself. Adrian could not understand her. Why would someone with so little give so much? Why would an Omega who had been ignored by society choose to care for a creature everyone else had rejected? Olivia, meanwhile, noticed small details about him that made her curious. The wolf was different from any animal she had ever known. He seemed to understand every word she said. When she spoke about her difficult days, he listened. When she felt lonely, he stayed close. When she laughed at something simple, he watched as if the sound itself was something precious. She began calling him Ash because of his silver-gray fur and the quiet strength she sensed within him. "You know," Olivia said one evening while sitting beside the fireplace, "everyone else thought you were something to be afraid of." The wolf looked at her calmly. She smiled softly. "But I think people are often afraid of things they do not understand." Those words stayed with Adrian, because he knew exactly what it felt like to be misunderstood. He had once been admired by thousands, but after losing everything, he became someone the world no longer recognized. The greatest pain was not losing his title. It was losing the ability to show people who he truly was. Yet Olivia never asked him who he used to be. She never demanded proof of his worth. She simply accepted him as he was. Days passed and an unexpected bond formed between them. Olivia found herself feeling less alone. Adrian found himself remembering emotions he had buried beneath years of responsibility. One afternoon, Olivia returned from gathering supplies and found Ash waiting near the door. The moment she entered, the wolf moved toward her with quiet relief. She smiled. "Were you waiting for me?" Adrian looked away, almost embarrassed by the truth. He was the Alpha King of Silvermoon. He had commanded armies, led a kingdom, and carried responsibilities most people could never imagine. But somehow, the simple kindness of one Omega woman mattered more than any praise he had ever received. That night, as snow covered the land outside, Olivia sat beside the fire with Ash resting nearby. She believed she had saved a lost wolf. She did not know that the wolf beside her was a king waiting to be found again. And Adrian slowly realized something that changed everything. The person who rescued him had no idea how powerful her kindness truly was. The days that followed brought a peaceful rhythm to Olivia Grace Bennett's small cottage, but beneath that quiet life, a hidden truth waited patiently to be revealed. Every morning, Olivia woke before sunrise to prepare supplies, care for her small garden, and make sure Ash had everything he needed. She still believed he was only a lost wolf who had been forgotten by the world. She never imagined that the creature sleeping near her fireplace carried memories of a throne, a kingdom, and a life far beyond the simple cottage walls. Adrian Alexander Whitmore watched her routines with growing curiosity. Before this unexpected journey, he had lived surrounded by luxury, servants, and people who followed his every command. As the Alpha King of Silvermoon, he had been raised to believe that responsibility came before everything else. But after losing his position, he discovered how rare genuine kindness truly was. Olivia did not treat him like a powerful figure. She did not know his name, his history, or the weight he carried. She only saw a lonely creature that needed someone to care. That difference stayed in his thoughts. One afternoon, Olivia walked through the nearby forest searching for herbs and supplies. Ash followed closely beside her, always keeping watch with calm attention. She smiled when she noticed him refusing to wander far away. "You really do not like letting me walk alone, do you?" she said softly. The wolf looked at her with quiet seriousness. Olivia laughed gently. "You are very different from what everyone told me." Adrian understood those words more deeply than she knew. People had always spoken about him through his title. They saw the Alpha King, the ruler, the symbol of strength. Very few ever wondered about the person beneath all of that. But Olivia had done the opposite. She saw him without knowing anything about him. She saw him without expectations. Later that evening, a sudden storm covered the borderlands in heavy snow. Olivia returned to the cottage with a tired smile, carrying the supplies she had collected. She expected another quiet night by the fire. Instead, she noticed something unusual. Ash was standing near the window, looking outside with an expression that seemed almost human. For a moment, Olivia wondered what memories lived behind those eyes. "Sometimes I feel like you understand everything I say," she whispered. Adrian remained silent, but inside, her words touched something he had tried to ignore. He did understand. He understood every word. He understood every emotion behind them. And that made protecting her feel more important than any duty he had ever carried. During the following weeks, their connection grew stronger. Olivia began speaking to Ash about her dreams, her fears, and the life she wished she could build someday. She told him she wanted a world where people were not judged before they were known. Adrian listened carefully because he realized she was describing the exact world he wanted to create as a king. She had no royal education, no political influence, and no powerful allies. Yet her simple belief in kindness carried more wisdom than many speeches he had heard inside the palace. One evening, while Olivia prepared tea near the fireplace, Ash moved closer and rested beside her. She gently placed her hand on his fur and smiled. "I think you found me for a reason." Adrian closed his eyes, feeling the truth of those words. Because he knew something she did not. Their meeting was not an accident. The Omega who believed she had rescued a forgotten wolf was slowly becoming the reason. A lost king remembered who he truly was. And far away from the small cottage, the kingdom of Silvermoon was searching for its missing Alpha King, unaware that their ruler was closer than anyone imagined. The quiet days in Olivia Grace Bennett's cottage continued, but the peaceful life she had built with Ash was about to change forever. She had grown used to the strange but comforting presence of the silver-gray wolf beside her. Every morning, he waited near the door while she prepared supplies. Every evening he rested near the fireplace as she spoke about her hopes and dreams. To Olivia, Ash was no longer just a rescued animal. He was a companion, a reminder that even the forgotten could still find kindness in the world. But far beyond the borderlands, the missing Alpha King of Silvermoon had become the subject of countless rumors. The kingdom was searching for answers, unaware that their ruler was living quietly in a small cottage with the one person who had saved him without knowing his name. Adrian Alexander Whitmore remembered everything about his former life. He remembered the grand halls of the palace, the responsibility of protecting his people, and the moment everything changed. He remembered the feeling of losing everything that defined him. But what surprised him most was not the loss of his title. It was discovering how different people treated him when he had nothing left to offer. Before Olivia, everyone had looked at him through the lens of power. They respected the crown, the position, and the strength of the Alpha King. Olivia saw none of those things. She saw a lonely creature that needed care. One evening, as snow fell gently outside the cottage, Olivia sat beside the fire and looked at Ash thoughtfully. "I wonder where you came from," she whispered. "You feel like you belong somewhere important." Adrian became still. Her words were closer to the truth than she realized. Olivia continued, "Maybe someone out there is waiting for you to come home." Those words carried a strange sadness because Adrian knew there was a kingdom waiting for him. But he also knew something else. For the first time in years, he had found a place where he was not expected to be perfect. He was simply accepted. The following morning, a group of travelers arrived near the border village. They carried messages from Silvermoon and asked the villagers if they had seen anything unusual. Olivia listened quietly as they spoke about the missing Alpha King. She felt a strange connection to the story, even though she never imagined Ash could be connected to it. "The Alpha King disappeared without a trace," one traveler explained. "Many believe the kingdom needs him now more than ever." Olivia looked toward the cottage where Ash was resting. She felt a quiet sadness for someone she had never met. She wondered what it would feel like to lose an entire world overnight. Adrian heard the conversation from nearby and felt the weight of his hidden identity grow heavier. He wanted to tell Olivia the truth. He wanted to explain everything. But he feared that the moment she learned who he was, everything would change. Would she still see him the same way? Would she still speak to him with the same kindness? That night, Olivia placed a fresh blanket beside Ash and smiled softly. "No matter where you came from, you deserve a safe place." Adrian looked at her, and for the first time, he understood that the most valuable thing he had lost was not his crown. It was the simple feeling of being accepted without conditions. Somewhere between a forgotten cottage and a kingdom waiting for its ruler, an impossible bond had formed. The Omega who saved a wolf had unknowingly saved the heart of the Alpha King. And soon, the truth hidden between them would finally come to light. The days after the travelers arrived brought a quiet tension to Olivia Grace Bennett's small cottage. She could not explain why their words about the missing Alpha King stayed in her mind, but something about the story felt strangely familiar. She thought about the loneliness behind those rumors, about someone who had lost everything and disappeared from the world. She looked at Ash resting near the fireplace and wondered if he understood more than anyone realized. Adrian Alexander Whitmore felt the same uncertainty from the other side. Every moment beside Olivia made it harder to keep his secret hidden. He had spent weeks watching her offer kindness without asking questions, and now he feared the one truth that could change everything. The truth about who he really was. He knew that. Once she discovered he was not just a wolf, she might see him differently. She might remember that he was a king, not the helpless creature she had rescued from the market. That thought troubled him more than losing his throne ever had. One morning, Olivia noticed something unusual about Ash. He seemed restless, looking toward the distant mountains as if he remembered a place far away. She sat beside him and gently spoke. "You miss something, don't you?" Adrian looked at her quietly. For a moment he wanted to tell her everything. He wanted to explain the kingdom, the throne, and the life he had left behind. But he remained silent. Olivia did not force him. Instead, she simply placed her hand near him and said, "You can stay here as long as you need." Those words affected Adrian deeply. She was offering him a home without knowing his identity. She was giving him the one thing he had not received from anyone in a long time. Acceptance without expectation. Meanwhile, the situation in Silvermoon continued to grow more uncertain. The kingdom needed its alpha king, and the royal advisors were searching for any sign of his return. Many believed that without their ruler, the future of Silvermoon would become unstable. But Adrian knew the truth. The kingdom needed him, yet a part of him was afraid to return. Before meeting Olivia, he believed his only purpose was to carry the weight of leadership. Now he wondered if a king could also have a place where he did not need to be strong every moment. One afternoon, Olivia prepared supplies for a nearby village. She noticed that Ash followed her with unusual determination. She smiled and said, "You really are determined to protect me, aren't you?" Adrian looked away, hiding the emotion he felt. He had spent his entire life protecting others because it was his duty. But protecting Olivia felt different. It was not an obligation. It was a choice. When they returned home, Olivia found an old symbol carved into the edge of a wooden box she had kept for years. She had never understood its meaning, but Ash reacted immediately when he saw it. His eyes carried recognition. Olivia noticed and became curious. "You know this symbol?" she asked softly. Adrian froze. The symbol belonged to Silvermoon's royal line. It was connected to the history he had once carried proudly. For the first time, Olivia came close to discovering the truth. That evening, the cottage felt quieter than usual. Olivia looked at Ash with a gentle expression, sensing that there were secrets hidden behind his eyes. She did not know what they were, but she trusted him. Adrian watched the woman who had changed his life and realized something important. He had been searching for a way back to his kingdom, but perhaps the first thing he needed to find was the person he had become after losing everything. The Omega who bought a forgotten wolf had unknowingly protected a king. And now, the moment of truth was approaching. The quiet mystery surrounding Ash grew stronger with each passing day, and Olivia Grace Bennett could feel that something important was hidden beneath the surface. She had learned not to fear the questions she could not answer. Instead, she trusted the feeling in her heart that told her the silver-gray wolf beside her was not someone she should abandon. To Olivia, Ash was still the lonely creature she had chosen to save. She did not know that behind those calm eyes was Adrian Alexander Whitmore, the missing Alpha King of Silvermoon. Adrian felt the weight of the secret growing heavier. He had always believed that honesty was the foundation of leadership, yet he found himself afraid to reveal the truth. Not because he feared losing his throne, but because he feared losing the one person who had cared for him when he had nothing left. Olivia had never asked him for anything. She never looked at him as a symbol of power or a way to improve her own life. She simply offered warmth, patience, and a place where he could finally rest. One evening, as the last light of the sunset disappeared behind the mountains, Olivia sat beside the fireplace and held the old wooden box with the mysterious royal symbol. She looked at Ash with curiosity. "I think you have a story you are not telling me," she said gently. Adrian lowered his gaze. He knew she was right. The time to hide was ending. Before he could respond, a familiar sound came from outside the cottage. Several travelers had arrived from Silvermoon, carrying news that changed everything. They had discovered signs connected to the missing Alpha King, and were searching the borderlands for answers. Olivia listened carefully as they explained that the kingdom needed its ruler to return. She looked toward Ash and felt an unexpected sadness. She imagined a king somewhere in the world who had lost his home, and she wondered if he felt as alone as she once had. Adrian heard every word. He realized that Olivia was feeling compassion for him without even knowing she was speaking about him. That moment showed him the kind of person she truly was. She cared about the unknown king the same way she cared about a forgotten wolf. Her kindness had never depended on someone's importance. It came from who she was. Later that night, Olivia prepared a warm blanket near the fireplace and sat beside Ash. "Wherever you came from, I hope you find your way home someday," she whispered. Adrian felt a deep emotion he could not ignore. For the first time, home did not feel like a palace or a kingdom. Home felt like a small cottage where someone waited for him without asking who he was. The next morning, the hidden truth finally began to emerge. As Olivia touched the royal symbol on the wooden box, Ash stepped closer. A soft glow surrounded him, and the air inside the cottage changed. Olivia stepped back in surprise as the wolf she had cared for began to reveal the person hidden within. Standing before her was not a lost animal, but a man with a noble presence and familiar eyes. Adrian Alexander Whitmore, the Alpha King of Silvermoon, had returned to his true form. Olivia could only stare, unable to understand how the wolf she saved had been a king all along. Adrian looked at her and spoke softly. "You saved me when you believed I was nobody." In that moment, Olivia understood that the greatest truth was not his title. It was the kindness that existed between them before she ever knew his name. The morning after Adrian Alexander Whitmore revealed his true identity, Olivia Grace Bennett woke up feeling as if her entire world had shifted. The small cottage that once felt like a simple shelter now carried the weight of a secret that could change an entire kingdom. The silver-gray wolf she had cared for was gone, but the person standing before her was the same soul she had trusted from the beginning. Adrian did not become someone new when he revealed he was the Alpha King. He was still the one who had rested beside her fireplace, listened to her stories, and accepted her kindness without expecting anything in return. Olivia looked at him with a mixture of surprise and uncertainty. She had spent weeks caring for someone she believed was powerless, and now she stood before the ruler of Silvermoon. The difference between them seemed impossible to ignore. Adrian noticed her hesitation and quietly said, "I am still the same person you saved." Those words reached her heart because she knew they were true. She had never cared about a title. She had never cared about royal power. She cared about the person who had needed help when nobody else stopped to look. Adrian explained what had happened in Silvermoon, and why he had been separated from his kingdom. He spoke about the responsibility he carried, the people waiting for his return, and the uncertainty surrounding his future. But when he talked about Olivia, his voice became softer. He admitted that she had given him something he never expected to find again: peace. Olivia listened carefully. She realized that beneath the image of the powerful Alpha King was the same lonely soul she had met in the market. The same person who had been forgotten and misunderstood. The same person she had chosen to help when everyone else walked away. Before leaving for Silvermoon, Adrian offered Olivia a choice. He told her she did not have to come with him. He did not want her to feel pressured by his position, or by the world that surrounded him. Olivia looked at the cottage where they had shared quiet evenings and remembered the first moment she saw him. She remembered that she had not rescued a king. She had rescued someone who needed kindness. "I do not regret saving you," she said softly. Adrian looked at her with genuine appreciation. For the first time in a long while he felt that someone stood beside him because of who he was, not because of what he represented. The journey back to Silvermoon began under a clear winter sky. As they traveled, Olivia saw a side of Adrian that few people knew. He was not only a ruler. He was someone who cared deeply about his people, and carried every responsibility personally. Adrian also saw Olivia differently. He saw that her kindness was not weakness. It was a strength that remained steady, even when the world had given her every reason to become bitter. When they finally reached the gates of Silvermoon, the kingdom waited in silence for their lost king to return. But no one expected the person walking beside him. Olivia stepped into a world of royalty, tradition, and expectations she had never known. Adrian knew the road ahead would not be easy. There would be questions. There would be doubts. But one thing had already changed forever. The Alpha King who once believed he had lost everything had found the one person who saw his heart before she ever knew his crown. The return to Silvermoon Castle was a moment Olivia Grace Bennet never imagined she would experience. The same woman who once lived quietly near the borderlands now walked through the grand gates of the kingdom beside Adrian Alexander Whitmore, the Alpha King she had unknowingly saved. The towering stone walls, the golden halls, and the countless eyes watching her made her feel like she had stepped into a world that was never meant for someone like her. Olivia remained the same person who cared for a forgotten wolf in the snow, but now everyone saw her differently. Some looked at her with curiosity. Others questioned how an Omega from a small village could stand beside their king. Adrian noticed every uncertain glance. He understood the pressure she felt because he had spent years carrying the expectations of an entire kingdom. But he also knew something the others did not. Olivia had earned her place beside him long before she entered the palace. She had stood beside him when he had no crown, no authority, and no one else willing to help. During the first days in Silvermoon, Adrian made sure Olivia had time to adjust. He showed her the gardens, the ancient halls, and the places where he had spent his childhood. He wanted her to see the person behind the title. Olivia discovered that the Alpha King was not only a powerful ruler. He was someone who remembered the names of ordinary villagers, someone who listened before making decisions, and someone who carried the worries of others quietly. The more she learned about him, the more she understood why his people needed him. At the same time, Adrian learned more about Olivia. He watched how she treated the castle staff with respect, how she thanked everyone who helped her, and how she never allowed her new surroundings to change who she was. Many people believed kindness came from having comfort and privilege. Olivia proved that true kindness came from the heart, even after experiencing hardship. One evening, Adrian invited Olivia to walk through the royal garden beneath the stars. The cold air of Silvermoon reminded her of the night she first brought Ash home. She smiled when she remembered how different everything had become. "I still cannot believe I was caring for the Alpha King in my little cottage," she said softly. Adrian smiled. "And I still cannot believe the first person who truly saw me was someone who did not know my name." Their conversation was simple, but it carried the meaning of everything they had shared. Their connection was not built on power or position. It was built on trust formed during the time when neither of them knew what the future would bring. However, not everyone in Silvermoon accepted the changes happening around them. Some members of the royal court believed an Omega from the borderlands could never understand the responsibilities of the kingdom. They questioned Adrian's decisions and wondered why he valued Olivia's opinion so deeply. Adrian listened calmly, but he refused to forget the truth. The person they underestimated was the person who reminded him what leadership truly meant. Olivia did not seek influence. She did not want attention. She only wanted to help people feel seen, just as she had helped a forgotten wolf in the snow. As the days passed, the kingdom slowly began to notice the difference she brought. The Alpha King who once carried every burden alone now had someone who reminded him that compassion was also a form of strength. And Olivia began to realize something important. She had entered Silvermoon believing she was following a king home. But perhaps in a way she never expected, she had also found a place where she finally belonged. The days that followed in Silvermoon brought a change that no one could have predicted. The kingdom that once waited anxiously for the return of its Alpha King slowly began to understand the person who stood beside him. Olivia Grace Bennet was not a noble by birth. She did not come from a powerful family, and she had never learned the traditions of royal life. But she carried something that could not be taught inside any palace. She carried a heart that noticed the people everyone else ignored. From the moment she arrived, Olivia continued doing what she had always done. She listened. She helped. She showed kindness without expecting recognition. The castle servants quickly noticed that she remembered their names and thanked them for even the smallest acts of service. The villagers who visited the palace discovered that she cared about their struggles and their hopes. Slowly, the people of Silvermoon began to see what Adrian Alexander Whitmore had already known. Olivia was not valuable because she stood beside the Alpha King. She was valuable because of who she had always been. Adrian watched this transformation with quiet pride. He remembered the night he had been nothing more than a forgotten wolf in the snow. At that time, Olivia had no reason to believe he could offer her anything. She did not know his power, his position, or his name. She only knew that someone needed help. That memory remained the foundation of everything between them. One evening, Adrian and Olivia stood together on the castle balcony overlooking Silvermoon. The kingdom stretched beneath them, peaceful under the soft glow of the moon. Adrian looked at the land he had once carried alone, and realized that leadership had never been about standing above everyone else. It was about understanding the people he protected. "You changed the way I see my kingdom," Adrian said quietly. Olivia smiled and shook her head. "I only showed you what was already there." Those words stayed with him because they represented everything he had learned. Strength was not only found in authority. True strength could be found in compassion, patience, and the courage to care when others chose to look away. As time passed, the doubts from the royal court slowly disappeared. The people who once questioned Olivia began to respect her because they saw the difference she made. They understood that the Omega who had entered the palace without a title had brought something the kingdom had forgotten: hope. Olivia also discovered that she had not lost herself by entering a world of royalty. She was still the same woman who had opened her door to a lonely wolf. She was still the person who believed every life deserved kindness. The only difference was that now, her kindness reached an entire kingdom. Adrian never forgot the first moment she saved him. Long after he returned to the throne, he remembered the small cottage, the warm blanket, and the simple words that gave him hope when he had lost everything. "You are safe now." Those words had changed his life forever. In the end, the Alpha King did not find his greatest treasure in a crown or a kingdom. He found it in the person who saw his heart before she ever knew his name. And Olivia, the Omega who once believed she had only saved a forgotten wolf, discovered that sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change the destiny of an entire world.